Alright, thanks for joining. And if you're on any of the video channels, just a heads up, it's going to crash. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spam the chat with the link, and I'm just going to redirect my domains to Mixlr. But if you go to infiniteplane.radio, there's a Mixlr app. We're going to be doing primarily audio streams from here on out, at least for the short term. But again, audio streams, no big deal. Zara says all buckled in for a bumpy ride. Yeah, it's going to go down again, like I said. We tried it out. I did a test. I didn't want to invite anybody until we went through with it. So basically, yes, we're on Mixlr, and I'm just going to continue to post the link there. So heads up, this will go down, and if you want to hear it in its entirety, you have to go to Mixlr. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to pay attention to the chats for as long as they are there. I was hoping to at least get through a few things today before I got too much further. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see what we have here. Okay. Got some Chief Crow on hand. So I'll be back here in about 2 minutes. Let's let some people show up and head over to Mixlr.
Communicate without obstacles.
I have people asking if this is pre-recorded. I know people are just super confused, and that's because I don't have a schedule. And that's because things are chaotic. I'm going to have to get a regular job to be able to afford to do this on a regular basis, because of the way they defund it. Not a big deal, though. We have a plan B, and the plan B is tabloid. We're producing a tabloid called Fake World News, which I'll be promoting here. In fact, I put the pre-order up. Issue 1 is going to come out on the 1st. We have a great team of researchers, reporters, writers, and I'm the chief or editor-in-chief. I'm empowered by Grammarly Premium, so it's going to go very well, I think. And I think that the tabloid will make it feasible for me to be able to sit down maybe 5 nights a week. I used to do this every day back when we were in the early days, but we do as much as we can afford. But anyway, you're lucky if you caught us live, because the videos will go crash. I don't know if we're going to get to anything substantive. I don't want to talk about tech issues. That's why I'm switching over to music. I'll be back here in just a moment.
Into your brain, the
You know what would be funny, not funny? If we dabble in a little misinformation, disinformation, if anybody here thinks it's fun, maybe, like I said, funny, not funny. We should spread the rumor that I've got all the major symptoms of the COVIDs and that I'm in denial about it. I'm huffing the ivermectin. My heart rate is up. My dog's got the COVID. Pull a Mac Parhar. See how long it takes them to grave dance. I was just watching a video with Science Man Bob, or Bob the Science Guy. He's this anti-flat earther, and he diagnoses. He does an e-autopsy. What do you call that? When you telekinetically you can move something, but what do you call it when you're an online physician, or you say you are online, and you're able to diagnose the cause of somebody else's death from 1,000 miles away? Anyway, yes, Bob the Science Guy has diagnosed Mac Parhar as having died of COVID. Pretty, logical conclusion, I guess, because it seems like it was structured that way. And many of us are of the opinion that it's very psyopy. One of these stories that seems like it was made for MSM consumption. But anyway, I called his passing before it happened, before anybody did. And then it happened, and I was like, look, either I'm psychic or we're looking at a script. Like, what are you more willing to accept? And I can find a lot of things to substantiate the script notion here. But interestingly enough, his name is an anagram for pharmaca. Okay, so pharmakos, or pharmaca. In ancient Greek religion, a pharmako was a ritualistic sacrifice or exile of a human scapegoat. So Parhar was definitely a ritualistic sacrifice, a scapegoat. And he was scapegoated. He was called an idiot by politicians, by powerful people. He was, I would say, persecuted by Global News, CA, by the Canadian media. So I think he was made into a ritualistic sacrifice and a scapegoat, and that his death is totally fake. I think I say this too because he was friends with Benjamin Coleman, the guy who ritualistically burned 3 Masonic lodges. I mean, if you're friends with somebody who's engaging in that level of Psy-War, gets published in the Daily Beast, the Flat Earth Arsonist, and he says all these things that seem cherry-picked out of our own discussions, but we've never heard of this person. So anyway, the name Mac Parhar, Pharmakos, anagram, I don't think it's a coincidence, and I think that's how far back the scripting goes for these world stage characters. So I want to bring your attention to this. These two brats, Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg, could not be more polarizing. One on the left, one on the right. Eco-fascist versus Second Amendment advocate, American hero, Kyle Rittenhouse. Greta Thunberg, Kyle Rittenhouse have the same birthday, 1/3/03. January the 3rd, 2003, they were both born. 133, does that mean anything? Well, consider their role on the world stage. Consider their age. They're both these youth exemplars for each of the respective sides of the political party, and each of them have an a very triggering effect on the opposite side. So I'm just suggesting that they're too well scripted, too well polarized, these two children, to have the same birthday and to be as relevant as they are on the world stage right now. Yeah, it's a little scripty. So when I say somebody whose name is an anagram for Pharmaca, the ritualistic scapegoat, yeah, I kind of think a guy who went up against Big Pharma and dies, I think it was scripted. Let us continue. Now, if you're not a believer in astrology, and I'm not sure if I am or not, I mean, I see patterns, I do, and I call them out, but I'm not attributing any objective meaning to what I'm pointing out. I don't know what the number 47 means, or the number 52 or whatever. These things pop up, 58, what was it? Yeah, 58. So, Joe Biden says, happy birthday to me, I turned 58. I'm like, what? Maybe that means something. But I'm looking at the patterns, And we do find them, we discern them, and this is just another example of such a pattern. Okay, so let's get into the next thing. Hannah Reed from Rust predicted her fall from grace. So Hannah Reed is the one who handed the weapon to Alec Baldwin. She's a 24-year-old. And I noted right away that she looked like someone who came out of a gothic clothing store. And she has a very conspicuous and large and unsightly Black Widow tattoo just above her belly button. And she's wearing a shirt that says "Always a Sinner," upside down cross, demon hand clutching a heart, all kinds of satanic imagery. And you see her crossing her hands or crossing the guns across her chest. All this stuff is very par for the course when it comes to occult symbolism. But my point is, she's the one who hands him the gun. She's got the big spider on her stomach. And one of the stage crew members over there in Rust, as they're taking it down, gets bitten by a spider and nearly loses his arm. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Spider bite, loses an arm, she hands over the gun. It seems like she's been made into something of a scapegoat, a villain. And I pointed this out early on. This is your designated scapegoat. Totally unbelievable. But another connection here that I think might be noteworthy is this. After the shooting, Alec Baldwin's ex-wife Kim Basinger is seen dancing in a goth club. So dancing in a goth club, I'm like, wait a minute here. You got this goth girl who hands the guy the gun. The guy's ex is seemingly celebrating. So I thought, well, there's a goth connection here. Like maybe it's through the club that Kim Basinger got this girl the gig and set her up as a proxy assassin, or to set up a situation. Maybe this was a revenge thing. And interestingly enough, in Wayne's World, Kim Basinger does play a role where she puts a loaded gun in the hand of Garth and tries to coerce him into killing her husband. So it's not outside of the roles that she has played. But let's move on from there. In September, she said, this is Hannah Reed on Facebook, quote, "How fucked up is it that life's been so good lately I can't help but feel that I'm about to fall from grace." So she predicts she's going to fall from grace, and again, that ties into her gothic imagery, the always a sinner, the upside down cross, and then the term fall from grace is very significant. And speaking of birthdays, a minute ago I brought up how those two activists or representatives of the wings, the extremes, Kyle and Greta, I brought up how their birthdays are the same, January 3rd, 2003. Here's an interesting connection. The number one anti-Trump person in the world, the most afflicted with Trump derangement syndrome, is Alec Baldwin. No one can dispute this. So the person who was shot, of course you had the Helena Hutchins, but the other guy, Souza, he was shot, wasn't killed or anything. He was the second victim, but his birthday is the same birthday as Donald Trump's. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So the guy who hates Trump the most shoots a guy, Joel Souza, who has Trump's birthday. Now again, just a coincidence. But maybe not. Because what is the significance here? Birthdays and death days. It's your entrance and exit points to the world stage when you talk about world stage characters. And so it's not really astrology so much as I think it's part of their code, or how they encode their characters. For example, the individual Souza had also worked on The Crow. You have some, or one of the assistant directors had worked on The Crow, not the one where Brandon Lee actually died, but the one where the follow-up one. And the significance here, of course, is that the Crow family, or the Brandon Lee family, came out speaking about The Crow. They said, "This incident recalls The Crow cover-up," and that whole fiasco. The thing is, Brandon Lee's death scene is just as fake as this one. So the fact that one references the other is highly significant. The fact that you had overlapping people involved in both sets, very significant. And also The Crow, is something of a phoenix. And if you look at the iconography of the movie, you can see that the crow is more or less the same thing. You can even see it in flames, but it in this movie represents this character who dies and comes back to life. Dies and comes back to life. You mean like a death faker? Yeah. And by the way, there are 5 million death fakers, I think, at least in the world right now. If you recognize that every master mason is a death faker, they all go through a ritualized death and rebirth. And to me, that's a huge part of the psyops that we see is this notion that you can basically have people who don't exist inserted onto the world stage and have them ritualistically killed. And you can have them serve a political purpose, and it's tremendously effective. But the idea is it's all stagecraft and theater, and it's just kind of an interesting coincidence that the cult that runs this place is obsessed with the phoenix imagery, with the death and rebirth and birth dates, and that the central rite of their initiation is the ritualistic death of the initiate. Just something to bring up here. There's a few other things I want to bring up regarding Kyle, because we're talking about the birth dates. Well, it turns out that there actually is a saint, Kenosha, which has some interesting. No, it's a Saint Kenosha, and I'll get into that one here in a minute. And someone needs to find it. I think it's deleted, but Kyle's original Instagram account actually had, I think it was Kyle Rittenhouse 33. But here's a few other things, because we're going on names. We're talking about the significance of names here and birth dates. These are all very and birth dates and ages. Like the one who handed Baldwin the gun is 24. The victim was 42. 24 and 42, those numbers figure prominently in a lot of psyops, and the meanings are the same across all of them. The German surname of Rittenhouse is applied to someone who lived in a house on a slope where reeds grew. Rittenhouse. Okay? And then you have, and this is again from some research on names, Thunberg, ornamental name. Old spelling of fence is what Thun means, and Berg would be habitation on a farmstead, on a mountain, or a hill. So someone had found some similarities with the etymology between Rittenhouse and Thunberg. And again, they had the same birthdays, January the 3rd, 2003. Fascinating. On Rittenhouse's last birthday, he was at that place called Pudgy's. Like, I would not be spotted at a place called Pudgy's if I looked like him. But anyway, that's where he was sworn in as a Proud Boy. And I was looking at some dates here also with some of these events. Like, okay, so let's get into the dates with Rittenhouse really quick. So he gets released on this day, and we have this SUV attack in Wisconsin. And the name of the place, the initials starts with a W. So WW. As Kyle gets released today. Well, a year before, you had the Mayfield Mall shooting when Kyle was posting bail for $2 million. So he posted bail for $2 million, and a 15-year-old shoots up Mayfair Mall. On November 20th, 2020, a mass shooting occurred at Mayfair Mall in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. 8 people were injured but survived. And I remember joking about it, saying, "Oh, it looks like they let Kyle out." Anyway, my point being, this was probably a psyop. Probably fake, but the timing of it was interesting. Kenosha suspect, Rittenhouse, posts $2 million bail. Now, we go forward to this time, he gets out, and we have a coincidental SUV attack. Like, what's up with that? And also something else. There's another Kyle Rittenhouse who just got arrested. And he was arrested for child stuff. So I'm like, wait, you got some sicko in jail with the name Kyle Rittenhouse, and just happens to be timed with Kyle Rittenhouse going on Fox News. So I kind of think that this character that was presented as having been in possession of this unlawful material, I have a feeling that this character may actually not exist. But his name, Kyle Rittenhouse, it's like, wait, how easy would that be? You go to thispersondoesnotexist.com. You create a fake face. Here we go. Gainesville police arrest a different Kyle Rittenhouse Friday, November the 19th. So if anybody was searching Kyle Rittenhouse, you're going to find this. Gainesville police arrest Kyle Rittenhouse for possessing child porn. So they created a headline like this. It says, police say they got a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that Rittenhouse was receiving these materials through Snapchat. They uncovered the chats where Rittenhouse was soliciting these images. They found him with dozens of images in his possession after executing a search warrant, 24-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. So you have a different Kyle Rittenhouse being called out for something sick on the day that, he's about to have the verdict read. To me, that's fake news. It's probably fake. Weaponized fake news. Commenter says, Rittenhouse was a total fiction. Rittenhouse was the first head of the U.S. Mint. Well, when I looked at this, I kind of thought that they were trying to recreate Chris Kyle. I remember the name stood out. Well, you got Chris Kyle, who died in 2013. He was a Navy SEAL, 150 or something confirmed kills. He was a combat shooter, a hero. But this was back at a time when you could be considered to be a hero for murdering a bunch of terrorists. But this was early. This was still during the time when the war on terror was still in full effect, and the terrorists were the bad guys. Now Americans are the bad guys. Now it's the MAGA ban, not the Taliban. It's white Al-Qaeda, not Al-Qaeda. And by the way, there's a group called The Base, the white nationalist group, The Base, making all these threats. Well, Al-Qaeda literally means the base. So you got white Al-Qaeda. So they repurposed everything. But at that time, Chris Kyle was this hero who had gone on tours in the Iraq War and was given awards for meritorious service on combat. We're talking 150 kills. So listen to this. This is from Wikipedia on Chris Kyle. And this is why I think he's fake. Because like Kyle, going across state lines to go stop looters, that's what Chris Kyle did. It says here, Chris Kyle, or Kyle, stated that during Hurricane Katrina, after hearing about the civilian strife in the area, he and another man drove to New Orleans to assist in the situation. With sniper rifles, they traveled to New Orleans and positioned themselves at vantage points on top of the Superdome. So Kyle gets on top of the Superdome in the looting following Katrina, and it says, quote, there, Kyle started shooting a number of residents and looters that they identified as making trouble. Reports state that Kyle shot 30. So think about that. Kyle shot 30 people, and this was considered to be heroic, and nobody questioned it. And this is why we're in a different world now. The world we're in right now, you have people like me, people like us, we sit around and we call out the fake news, and we don't just passively accept these fake stories as real and let them paint up the zeitgeist however they like. Well, this apparently didn't get challenged then. So I'm thinking, no, this has got to be a hoax. Now there's more. Kyle related a story how he was robbed at a gas station in 2009. During the robbery, he told the two men he would return to his car to give them his keys. He picked up his gun and shot both robbers dead. So Kyle's this hero who's killed 150 people, 160 people. He claimed 320. The Navy said 160. 30 in Katrina, and then 2 of these others. So Chris Kyle, all-American hero, I think they recreated him. Also, when Kyle showed up on the world stage, he was wearing a white hat, symbol of the Army of Q, the White Hat Army, and he was 17, the special number of the QAnoners. And what's more, he was front row seat at a Trump rally. He was front row seat at the Trump rally before the Kenosha riots. Branch Covidiot says, hello, fellow apostates. Hello, I want to go ahead and put a link in the chat. We've had a lot of technical issues. I have to replace my graphics card. It'll be a few more days, but in the meantime, we're mostly on audio. So when this crashes, not if, when the video crashes, you can head on over there. You can also find Mixlr at infiniteplane.radio, darkmatter.radio. We're talking about significance of names and birth dates. We got into Kyle Rittenhouse and the fact that he and Greta have the same birthday, are the same age. This is kind of fascinating. I'm constantly looking at pieces being put on the board. It's like a big game of chess here. And I'm looking at the pieces. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence at the end of August, John Hinckley and Saran are both released. We're talking the shooter of Reagan, who's now 66, and Saran, who's 77. Shooter of RFK, shooter of Reagan. Both of them get out. That's kind of odd. So you got two killers on the loose. I thought it was odd last year at when Derek Chauvin posted bail that he was released at 11:22 a.m. And today is 11:22, 2021. I thought, kind of an Oswald callback. So I'm just getting this theme that on the chessboard there is an assassin on the loose, an Oswald on the world stage, that they telegraph these things in this way. So we've got these assassins being released, the image and the ghost of Oswald. I hear mentions of Jack Ruby. Someone says Jack Ruby Kyle. The anti-Kyle people want him shot. Well, anyway, listen to this. Two men convicted of killing Malcolm X will be